this.
What is going on, guys? So, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is something that I feel like no matter who you are, if you've played it for a significant amount of time at some point in your life, whether it's when you're younger or not, a majority of people come back to it. Not always, but a lot of people get curious about it, they see what the game was, they see a game from their childhood, and a lot of people just continue to play it because it was something that interested them. And that was kind of what happened to me. Me and my friends picked up some Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards at Walmart back in 2012, out of boredom, because we actually had some money in our pockets, and we went on with it. And, only me and my one friend stuck with it for a little bit, and I made some YouTube videos with him and myself. I made a channel, and I was blowing up a lot at the time, when yugitubers were kind of blowing up. It was kind of a time between 2013 and 2016 is kind of when it decided of who was going to be who for YouTubers. I also just stopped making videos because of things that grew up. I was getting out of Yu-Gi-Oh! I was working a lot. I was going to school, and all sorts of different things were happening at the time. And I just kind of got out of making videos, but the videos were more getting made out of because I kind of lost interest in the game. New mechanics were introduced, things I didn't really want or thought the game enjoyed. I kind of liked the slower pace of how the game was when I entered and learning about the competitive scene there. To me, it was a lot more simpler, but also very dynamic. But if you go to how the game has become now, and you could say this about any type or any format, and you could bitch about it, especially since I played during the E-Drags format, which... But, in all seriousness, you could say that about any format. Though, the new mechanics, pendulum, and then link summoning, and some change in rules. I'm not saying that you can't learn it, because people do, especially people that stay in the game. But for someone like me who kind of stayed out of it, and I didn't really pay attention to link summoning, and lately I've been playing on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, and I've been kind of trying to learn some of these new decks and what things are being played right now, whether it's still OCG or not. I don't understand. I don't know the staples. Even if I look up videos, there's just not set videos on staples of what to play. And I've thought about reaching out to some yugitubers that I used to kind of keep in touch with, like Nimdim and stuff like that, and if he could just give me a rundown on what's competitive and stuff like that. But I didn't really think about, I don't really want to bother anybody, because usually when I played the game, I taught myself on it, or I watched some videos and just learned about it. But it's not really that helpful now. There used to be a lot of videos back in the day, especially by I still just know him as Asian Eyes White Dragon, would put deck profiles on YouTube and then pretty much explain what each card does and how the deck runs. But I can't seem to find videos like that anymore. I mean, I used to even kind of make videos about that sometimes and explain the plays. People would just kind of assume you know how the deck plays by, I guess, playing the game. And I know it kind of sounds like I'm complaining here, or people are just like, oh, well, get good, new. And I understand that. But say if you're a new person in the game and you're trying to learn, there's nothing very helpful about it. If you go to Pokemon TCG or even Magic the Gathering, Magic's very confusing. There are detailed guides on how to play those games, new functions, explaining formats, what's this, what's that. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is more about hype cards, box and openings, and just looking at competitive decks. And I feel like that's kind of different. And I don't know what I missed in this amount of time that I've been gone or not really in the scene. But as I'm actually trying to be a competitive player, because not to talk highly about my income, but I am kind of well off at this point where I don't really give a shit about making a deck, whether it's expensive or not. Back in the day when I was doing YouTube, I had a lot of other expensive stuff, and spending a couple $100s in a deck wasn't really an option for me. So I was budget player. I mean, it was an option, but I have so many other hobbies. I was I'm not going to just dump a couple $100s into this fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck that's probably going to be uncompetitive in a couple months. Nowadays, Yu-Gi-Oh!, from what I could see from prices, aren't so expensive. Some of these new cards and the Impact Storm Impact, don't quote me on that. The new card that is the Harpy's Feather Duster, that is kind of a pretty penny. But a lot of other cards that are competitive, they're not as expensive as I feel like it was a couple years ago. Some might argue with that. It's just some of the competitive deck pricings I was looking at, whereas about what I was about 50 or more dollars what I considered a budget deck. I considered a budget deck back in the day between 80 and 130. You can get a pretty competitive deck between 150 and 200. So it's going around with prices, and it also depends on what you want to play. You could play an older deck that has a more competitive go because new cards have come out, but you might not. It might be tier 6 or something, but as a whole, it's not going to be super crappy. But with that being said, as I'm trying to learn the game, and I want to be competitive and maybe try to get back into playing it again and playing online and making videos for it again. There's, like I said, there's that learning curve that I can't seem to hop over. And it's not like I don't understand. Like pendulums, I finally got the hang of near the end of when I stopped making YouTube videos and what decks were playing it. But I still didn't really, I wasn't one of those people that was really a pendulum deck, even when they were heavy. And it wasn't a matter of that I didn't know the mechanic. It was more like I really didn't like the decks that used them. Link summoning and that mechanic, I don't have anything against. It's just I don't see. I'm trying to find out what is good and how to play it and what to play. So before, it was a pretty simple term depending on your deck, but basically rank 4, Exceed summon your boss monster, summon other monsters to the field to get other Exceeds on the field or synchros, and build a play. And it wasn't always that way. And when pendulums come out, changed the dynamic, but it was still kind of that play, but with a different catch. Like I said, people are going to just jump on, well, get good, figure it out. And I'm trying, but it takes time. And with it taking time and me trying to figure out what decks I want to play and also finding out what cards have been banned, I've always been like my go-to deck to feel out a format is like what I call my Chaos Sworn deck. And that's not because it's a great deck, but it's like no matter what format changes, like it's always a somewhat, I wouldn't say the word competitive, but somewhat like maybe one turn you could win because you just happen to wipe them out quickly and got spam a bunch of monsters quick, or you completely get dead hands and they take you out instantly. So it was always a good way to feel out what formats were, because even though I haven't posted videos about it, over the course of the last couple of years, I would randomly play here and there just to see what was going on. But like right now, I get on Chaos to build my deck on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro a couple of days ago. The Eclipse Wyvern went from 3 cards down to zip. What the fuck? And I don't know what happened in that amount of time. I don't know what deck was compatible or what deck was really topping at the time that made Eclipse Wyvern get banned. I don't know, and I haven't looked into it either. All I know, it was gone, and that was kind of the thing that kept the consistency in my Chaos Sworn deck. Though there were some other cards that came out too that kind of made it not better, but that would have been great too. If I still had Eclipse Wyvern, it would have been better. But it doesn't matter. I was still testing out the decks, and I could just see that even decks that I would consider kind of slow from what I'm feeling from this current format and what's being played, is that even my Chaos Sworn deck doesn't even compete, where when I played like a year and a half ago, I was still wiping decks from time to time, depending on what I was drawing and the consistency. Sometimes I'd get dead hands because the deck wasn't actually that good. Like I said, I just used it to feel out what was being played. Same with Dark Worlds. Dark Worlds is always a deck that I would use to feel out what was being played, not because the deck's necessarily super competitive, but just because sometimes you can win with it, sometimes you can't a lot. But once again, just compared to what was being played, I was completely being overthrown. So then I just was seeing what was being played, and I just made like a Malefic kind of old school shutdown deck. Basically, I will not let your monsters use effects, and I would not call this competitive at all. It is a mess. It doesn't even have like a lot of decent cards in it. I was just throwing things together that would be like just you're not allowed to do anything. And I finally was able to put a stop to a bunch of shit. But it wasn't like competitive. I had like one monster on the field, and I was defending myself constantly with like threatening roars and like stuff like that, because it was just a bullshit deck. But I was kind of seeing what people were doing. I was using this deck more to just test what people were doing. There was a person that literally asked me, because it was like Malefics with Seal Void Calcos type of like lockdown, even though it wasn't a lockdown. I'm just using that to broad term. And somebody asked me, what the hell are you playing? I've never heard of Malefic. So I was playing against a kid or even adult, that never heard of Malefic. So that means there's a new player that has more skill with the game from what I was noticing, because his deck was really good. But he had no idea what Malefics were, which I found very interesting. I feel like even if you haven't played for long yet, you've at least stumbled across those cards, even if it was on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, that you just stumbled across them. I don't know. It was just weird to me. But that was the only way I could test the format, and I just still don't get it. But the whole point of what I'm getting at in this video is Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not as user-friendly as it once was, and it never say it was as it was. But for new players or old players getting back into it, the learning curve has gotten a bit higher, where it might be turning off new players. And I'm not saying that Konami or anybody needs to change that, but I feel like this is more of a message to other YouTubers that's not including me, because I'm not really one of them anymore by any means, but that some should make some more detailed guides about the game in its current state, and maybe update it every year or so if it is deemed worthy to be updated for, to try to give players, or new players or old players coming back, the skill sets and what cards they need. And when I mean a video, I mean like listing staples, all sorts like that. So it's kind of a message to them, if anybody even sees it. And if somebody knows a video that has a detailed guide on like the new mechanics and everything like that, link it down below for me, and I'm willing to check it out. I just haven't found anything that really detail it to what I really need, and like a list of like staples, if there even are staples anymore, or what archetypes are good right now, stuff like that. Even if I look it up, it's not, I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something somewhere that I didn't really feel like I was missing before. And I just feel like that's the state of Yu-Gi-Oh's in. But I'm also very interested to try to get back into it, oddly enough. So that's what I got. I shaved my head.
Damn. Yeah.